Chatterbox number 297, Personal Finance. So Anna, let's start our conversation. And today we're talking about personal finance. And these days, it seems like there's a lot of instability in the global economy. Prices seem to be rising. We've talked about shrinkflation on Culips before as well. It just means that we have less buying power. Our money is not worth as much as it used to be. And I think in reaction to this, a lot of people do start to think twice before they purchase something. And a lot of people become interested in personal finance and how they can save their money, grow their money, invest their money, all of these things. So I guess, Anna, maybe I will kick off the conversation by asking you just a general question. And that is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how interested are you in personal finance? And is it something that you're really concerned about and interested in? Or is it something that you don't really like to spend too much time thinking about? Okay, great question to start off with actually. And I would say that I'm somewhere in the middle, closer towards a 10 than 1. So definitely, I have to say that as I've got older, this has changed dramatically. When I was younger, I really don't care as much about saving money or personal finance. But as I've got older, I would say from perhaps my mid-20s upwards, it's definitely something that I'm much more focused on. However, I'm not obsessive about it. So, for example, I will try and put that in context. Like, I don't obsess about how much I spend. Like, I don't know exactly how much I spend every single month, like all of my expenses. But I really do like to have a handle on how much I'm saving. And I'm much more a saver now than I was before. But I think that comes back to what you're saying about that kind of one thing that really depresses me is when you think about your savings that you have in the bank and like every year they are like less and less and less. So I'm really interested in ways that I can invest or maybe do something with my money so that I can earn more money. I don't know, but I'm kind of at the phase right now where I want to be. Where I want to be smarter with my money. That's a better way of putting it. But I haven't always been like that. That's a recent transformation. But when I was younger, I would get my paycheck? Oh, that's very American. I would get my pay. I would spend it. I would get my pay. I would spend it, so it was like there was no saving going on whatsoever. I wish I had been a bit more of a saver when I was younger. I think people who know to save early are much better off financially in the future. So I wish I had done that, but I didn't. So yeah, what about you? Where are you on the spectrum, on the scale? Yeah, Anna, I would say that my experience is actually pretty similar to yours. When I was in my 20s, I don't want to say that I spent a lot of money. I just want to say that I had no money. So it's not like I was against the saving. It's just that I didn't really have any to save. So, in my 20s, I was a university student for the majority of the time. And I did have some part-time jobs while I was a university student, but all of that money was like coming in and then going out, paying for rent and food and some clothing and maybe hanging out and spending time with my friends and this kind of thing. And there just wasn't very much left over. So I would say almost for the whole decade in my 20s, I was living paycheck to paycheck, which is an expression that we use in North America to talk about that situation where you get some money and you spend that money and then you don't have any savings to live off of until you get your next paycheck from your job. And yeah, I think this is a natural thing about getting older. So you start to become more mature and graduated from university. You get your first full-time job and you start to making a little bit of money, and then it's easier to save, right? But still, even in my early 30s, I had a student loan. I had a student loan from attending university. So instead of saving, I was paying off my student loan for the first couple of years of my 30s, which is good because I was getting out of the debt that I had accumulated from being a university student. But it wasn't great for my savings account. So I think it was like I was financially healthy, but maybe not building savings so much. But once I finally got that out of the way, then I started becoming more interested in saving. I started becoming more interested in saving money. I started becoming more interested in saving money. I started becoming more interested in saving money. And yeah, now my wife and my wife has always been a good saver, and I think really her healthy financial outlook has had a good influence on me. And also, just now that we're together and married, we have financial goals that we want to accomplish in the future. So yeah, we are on a very strict budget right now. we have everything. We know where every penny is going. We have a spreadsheet. We map everything out. We have different accounts for our food budget, our rent, our clothing, our allowance. We give each other a little allowance each month. And everything is very organized. Thanks to my wife, I gotta give her credit where credit is due. It was not necessarily my idea was more under her influence, but it's night and day. The way that I used to treat my finances when I was in my 20s compared to now in my 30s is totally different. And being an English teacher, it doesn't mean that I make a lot of money, unfortunately. I wish this industry offered high salaries. It doesn't. So it's not like I have a lot of money, but the money that I do have, I think I'm being quite smart with it these days. I have a little bad habit. When I'm happy, I spend the money. So if I'm having a good day, I'm like, oh, perfect, let's go to the shop. And I'll be like, oh, yeah, that's great. So I have to be careful when I'm happy because when I'm happy, I spend money. But I'm not a big shopper, to be honest. I don't like to shop a lot, but if I'm happy, I need to be really careful. But one thing I've tried doing recently is I have a bit of a bad habit, as I said, for shopping when I'm happy and buying things that I don't really need. Buying things that I don't really need. Everybody does that, I guess. Everybody does that, I guess. But one thing I've been trying to do more recently is if I see something I really like, I don't buy it straight away. So I will be like, okay, I really liked that, but I'm not gonna buy it today. And then the following week, I will leave it another week. And if I'm still thinking about it after 1 month, then I will buy it. But if I stop to thinking about it or forget about it, then obviously I won't buy it. I'm trying not to just buy things, impulsive buys. And also I'm trying to treat myself a bit more. So for example, if I have a bad week of work where I don't feel I've been very productive, I kind of like punish myself. And I'm like, no, you can't have those pair of shoes. You haven't worked hard enough this week, right? Oh, you're too harsh on yourself. No, but I think it's good. And then if I have a really good week or really productive, I do a lot of things. I'm like, okay, you can go and buy that, that shirt or that nice over expensive cream or something like this. You can go and buy. You can go and buy that because you've done well this week. So I try and give myself like treats. I know it kind of sounds like I'm treating myself like a dog, but it's like trying to motivate myself. It's incentives, right? Incentives are one of the best ways to motivate people. I have a pair of jeans that I want from Levi's, and I really want them, but they are expensive. So I'm like, okay, if I have a good quarter, then I will buy the jeans. And if I don't have a good quarter, I won't buy that jeans. So that's kind of keeping me going. It's like a carrot. We say dangling a carrot in front of a horse. Right, exactly. The reason also I wanted to mention as well, a really good book. If any of you are interested in personal finance or money mindset, I'm gonna use a bit of a buzzword. There is a really good book that I read, which is called The Abundance Code. There is a really good book that I read, which is called The Abundance Code. It's a really good book. It's a very interesting book because it helps you think about money in a different way. And it's written by a lady. I'm just gonna get the author's name here because obviously that's very important. Julia Ann Cairns, and she wrote this book called The Abundance Code. And if you're interested in kind of changing your perspective around money, It's a really, really good book. And she kind of flips it on its head and how we kind of live our lives, always thinking that money is a very scarce thing. But actually, you need to think about money in an abundance mindset. Well, I mean, those are kind of some buzzword, but I won't, kind of ruin it for you. But if you're interested in that type of thing, I'd recommend reading that book. It was really good. I'd be interested to really good. I think I've really gotten it under control definitely the last year, because as I mentioned, I have an allowance. I have an allowance right now. I have an allowance. I have an allowance now.
At the author's
I have an allowance.
allowance right now, like an allowance right now, like
Allowance right now. Like my wife. When I get paid, so I get my salary from my teaching job. That money goes directly to my wife. She takes it all. So my bank is at like 0. It's like all my salary, boom, to my wife, where she will budget everything. And one thing that's interesting about living in Korea is it's very easy to set up multiple bank accounts. This has changed a little bit now, but compared to back home in Canada, where it's a little bit of a pain in the neck to make bank accounts and to transfer money from one account to another account. That doesn't really exist in Korea. So it's very easy to make like several different accounts and to transfer money to those accounts. Transfer money from one account to another account. Transfer money to those accounts, which makes just allotting everything really simple. So I send her my salary, and right now we are really trying to save. So I have a monthly budget. That is, I don't know if I should say the exact number, but it's around a little less than $200 American per month. A little less than. So that is my personal spending money. But the thing is, I don't want to spend all of that money, because then it's difficult. So out of that money, out of my personal spending money, I actually save about 25% of that, and a purchase that I've wanted to buy for a long time is a new espresso machine. I have a coffee machine in my house, but I don't have an espresso machine anymore. I did have one that my friend gave me, but it has kicked the bucket. And I had to throw it out. It stopped working. So I've wanted to buy an espresso machine for a long time, and I'm saving up to buy one. I know this kind of sounds silly as a 37-year-old man. It's like, if you want a coffee machine, just go out and buy a coffee machine, right? But under this new financial system that we are doing, I've been saving, like about $50 a month. And the espresso machine that I wanted to buy is $1,200. I've saved up about $600 so far, and I think this is great because I know that this is something that I actually want to buy, because I've been doing it month after month and after month. Just put my $50 in, and once I get to $1,200, then I will see if I actually want to buy it or not. But yeah, being like really strict like this has kind of made it so that I don't buy any impulse things or pointless things. Yeah, sometimes I will buy a hamburger or something, like I will treat myself to a meal, push the boat out. Yeah, and those are like my impulse things. I just don't really have that much spending money because of this small allowance, because of the small allowance.
System, put my $50 in something, like I'll treat myself to like a meal. Spending money because of this small allowance, like that's my money for buying.
Small allowance. Because of this small allowance, like that's my money for buying clothes. That's my for buying any like personal things. If I go out my friends for dinner or something, that's where I'm drawing my money from. So I have to be really careful with it. And it's great. I kind of like living under the tight restriction. I say this, maybe some listeners from different countries around the world are saying, "Oh, Andrew, $200 is a ton of money." But here in Korea, where things are expensive, it's not really that much money. There's not much you can do with it. So yes, I live very humbly these days and trying to save more than spend. And I think there's something very satisfying about saving money, and I think once you get into the habit of it, it's very satisfying to see it increasing a little bit. Every time you look in your account, you can see the numbers going up, and you think, oh, that makes me feel better. And I think once you start saving, it becomes like a bit of an addiction. And also once you start building up a little bit of money or whatever, it's like it's hard to use it. I really don't want to see those numbers just go down. You kind of think about it, and you go over it in your head about whether do I really need to spend this money or not. The reason why I started saving more deliberately a few years ago is because we have an expression in English. We have an expression in English which is save for a rainy day. Save for a rainy day. Save for a rainy day. Which is basically like you never know what's gonna happen. You never know what's gonna happen. Life happens, and sometimes you have to spend the money. I don't know, maybe you have to move back home, or I think this was more important for me because I'm living in another country that I thought I need to have a bit of a cushion we say cushion in English to mean like a financial buffer, kind of like a safety net, almost, right? If you get into a problem, then you have some money to make it through the problem without running into a big problem. And that gives me a bit of peace of mind about what I'm doing. Just knowing that I have a little bit of money that I just keep safe, locked away. I don't touch it. I don't use that money ever. And I just know that if I have a really urgent problem or something that happens, then I can use that money. But as you mentioned, you touched on it very briefly there.
Cushion in English to mean like that I have a little bit of money that I just keep safe, locked away. I don't touch it. I don't use that money ever. And I just know that if I have a really urgent problem or something that happens, then I can use that money. But as you mentioned, you touched on it very briefly there. Some people,
You touched on it very briefly there. Some people, it's just not possible to do that. Maybe they don't have the means to save at the time. And I've been in that position as well, where I haven't had the money to save something. So, I mean, it's almost like a luxury to be able to save money as well. And I think it's important to save that not everyone's in a position. And I think it's important to I think it's important to say that not everyone's in a position. Not everyone's in a position. 100%. Yeah, not everyone's in the position to be able to do that. Not everyone's in the same position to be able to do that. And I wish everyone had that kind of peace of mind as well, because it doesn't make you feel more relaxed about things. But equally, some people have the perspective of why save, like just spending all the money that you have. Some people are very open about it. They are like, yeah, no, I just spend all the money that I have. I go and do things. I use that money to live in the moment. And do whatever. So some people have a very different outlook on saving. I think most people would probably think that saving was a good thing, but some people are really on the opposite hand. They are like, no, I'm just going to spend the money that I have. Save for what? Exactly. That's a good point. I've always been worried about having credit card because I don't know if I fully trust myself to have a credit card. So I've never had a credit card. Oh, interesting. I've always never had a credit card. I've just never delved into that zone. Even though it would probably be great for me to get a credit score and whatever, but I've never had a credit card because honestly, I don't trust myself with it. And I think people need more education about personal finance when they are younger. Like when you're like, I don't know, in your teenage years, to know about this kind of thing with credit cards, because I know some people that have gotten some really difficult situations with credit cards, spending money, to do things or whatever. And I understand why people use them. I'm not criticizing people I'm not criticizing people to and I'm not criticizing people that do. I'm not criticizing people that do. I'm not criticizing people that do. But I know people that have got into some really stressful situations with the credit cards. And I think that people need to be educated a bit more about personal finance when they are younger. I think that people need to be educated. Need to be educated. People need more education. Educated. I think people need more education. I think that people need to be educated a bit more about personal finance when they are younger. I would have loved to have a bit more education about that, saving money. Why it's good to save. If you save money, this is what might happen, or if you get a lot of credit card, you could be in this situation in the future. That is how credit cards work. How credit cards work. It's not actually your money. Right? Do you know what I mean? Like you have to pay back. I think there needs to be a bit more of that around the personal finances and education around that, definitely. I absolutely agree with you. When I was a high school student, I took accounting classes. So I learned about how to do bookkeeping for small businesses, but we never had any personal finance classes. We didn't learn about investing. We didn't learn about credit. We didn't learn about student loans and mortgages and different saving strategies. I think that's really important to have a society that's financially literate. Can be a bad thing. So I don't know why Canadian schools don't offer that. It would be interesting to hear from our listeners and to see if their countries do offer a kind of personal finance class in high school for students. I'm sure that there are some countries around the world that do. Unfortunately, Canada isn't one of them, and it sounds like the UK isn't one either. No, I've never had anything like that, and also I would say as well, obviously, emotions. Okay, so I know that this is a very different situation when we are talking about people that have families, or its credit card can be really useful as well, because you need to put expenses or things that you want to do, and it's not all bad. But obviously, I'm looking at it from a perspective of one person. I'm only responsible for myself. So really, I know that the situation is different if you've got 4 children that you have to pay for, and it's like a different conversation. But I like saving. I think saving is important, but I'm not obsessive about it. Maybe I should be. Maybe I need to take a bit of a leaf out of you and your wife's book and try and just not spend too much in things like supermarkets. I feel like I spend too much money in supermarkets. I'm terrible because I go when I'm hungry. I always make that mistake. I go when I'm hungry. I spend a lot of money, and I just don't look at the receipt, and I'm just like, whatever, it's just supermarket. It's food. I have to buy food, but those little things add up, those little things add up. Yeah, I think that is probably an area that we could reduce our spending in as well as our food budget, because my wife and I both work a lot, and at the end of the day you're hungry, and there are so many restaurants just within walking distance and food delivery in Korea. It's so easy, and you can just open your app and they will deliver it right to your door. And sometimes if you're tired and hungry at the end of the day, it's really easy to do that. So maybe we could be more disciplined in that regard. But Anna, before we wrap up, because I know we're getting a little long here, but I do want to share some tips, because we did say that we are going to give some tips. Yeah, so I wrote down how many I have. I have 5 tips that I wrote down here on a little post-it, and maybe I will share one of them because I think it's funny, because we already talked about this at the start of the episode. And my tip is get older, because that has been the best thing for me for saving money is aging. I don't care so much about looking cool and having the coolest fashion, so I don't need to stress out about buying fashionable clothes and spending money on fashionable clothes. I'm also busier now that I'm older. I can't see my friends 3 or 4 times a week like I could when I was younger, and I just spend the money every time I went out with my friends. So that's actually one of the tips that I wrote down. It's just like age. Get older. It has helped me save money. Yeah, age. Get older. That's a good one. I will just do 5 quick ones. So don't buy things straight away. If you want them, leave it a bit of time. I would also say keep one account with money in. Keep one account with money in that you don't touch. Keep one account with the money in that you don't touch. And so one account where there's no transactions. You just put money in. It, and that helps to save. Because you don't have to kind of mix it up with other money. Give yourself treats. I think it's a good way to manage like your spending. So if you do something well, when in my case, give yourself treats. That is a good one. Spend your money. If you're thinking about how to spend your money, I always think about it like this. Spend your money on experiences rather than things. So if you're thinking about how can I spend money, I always prefer to spend the money doing things rather than getting things. And that's always how I prioritize my spending. And also, if you want to learn a bit more about personal finance or the way you think about money, I definitely recommend reading that book, The Abundance Code. It changed the way that I thought about money and personal finance. So those are my mini tips. I don't know if they're useful, but that's what works for me. I like it. I mean, all of these tips, everybody's financial situation is so different from person to person. It's impossible to say, like, you should do this. Of course, we all have different backgrounds and everybody is different, but it's always interesting to hear others' perspectives. And there is a little bit of a taboo in Western culture around talking about money and talking about finance, and sometimes it's something that people are not too open about. So it's fascinating to have conversation like this. I will share my tips that I wrote down on my post-it note here. Of course, getting older, that was my kind of joke. The next tip is buy in bulk. So, for example, I always have my eyes open for a good sale. I was at the supermarket today and it's kind of a new trend. I don't know, this is a worldwide trend. I kind of feel like it's a worldwide trend. I will have to do more research into it. I don't know in Spain. Maybe you could chip in with your perspective in Spain, but here in Korea, suddenly there's a lot of non-alcoholic beer that's for sale. And I have a feeling like non-alcoholic drinks are becoming kind of trendy and popular.